If you are a fantasy author, you've come to the right place. My name is Jesper, and together with Autumn, we've published more than 20 books, and our aim here is to use our experience to help you in publishing, marketing, and selling books to fans all over the world. So today we are going to talk a bit about one of these topics, and that is especially around how you should price your book. All right, and for the first time, actually, I think we have a returning guest here on I'm Writing Fantasy, and I'm talking to Joseph today to help me. So, Joseph, what have you been up to since last time we talked?
Hey, thanks, Jesper. I don't think we've talked since I released my sequel, which would have been in September, late September of last year. I released my second book, The New Magic.
Yeah, because I think last time we talked, you only had the first book out, wasn't that so?
I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. We were talking about sales last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that we did that. That's second books are hard, I think, in a trilogy. So
yes.
it hasn't done as well as we had expected, but there are some very strange things happening with the numbers that we haven't got figured out yet, and we recently learned that it was very heavily pirated right at the beginning, right at launch. It launched into the top 50 epic fantasy new releases on Kindle, and it got mainstream backing. It got mentioned in like Gizmodo, I think, and I think The Verge and some other pretty big websites. And it started off really great, and the Goodreads reviews are pretty strong, and there's a tremendous number of them, but the Amazon reviews, there haven't been that many, and we're not seeing a lot of sales, but we're seeing a lot more reviews and a much higher percentage of Goodreads reviews than sales. And we're seeing a lot of social media traffic as well, but not the sales to back it up. And then we recently found out that it was featured on a pretty major piracy site that's since been taken down. So we're kind of recovering from that, but we're fairly sure that we got ripped off. So yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, it's just part of author life. But
yeah, it's fine. People are reading it, and that's great.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
But it is a second book, and so it's been, it's a lot darker. It's the second act. It's been getting varied responses from people. It shows the protagonist in a less than flattering light, because in the second book, he tends to in the second act things start to go wrong for him. So. That's fine. People like to see others doing that. It's fine.
All right.
But
good. I hope it'll pick back up for you. But well, I think what we wanted to get into here it was a bit around the pricing, because and actually this is sort of a often debated topic in the author community in general. There are those who swear by that you should price your books cheap. Because it's an ebook, and others are saying that you are insane if you do so, because books are of a much higher value than maybe $1 or $2 or whatever. So that's sort of what we want to get into a bit here today, and you have some thoughts on this, I know, Joseph.
Yeah, sounds great. So we first started off pricing my first book, Dragon's Trail, at $2.99, I think, when it first released back in 2016, and it did fairly well. And at $2.99, and then it got like a couple of book clubs at 99 cents. I think it got an international and then a U.S. book club. And after that, I think we raised the price to $3.99 or $4.99, and we found that there was no decrease in sales when we did that. And then about a year later, it had kept selling, and we had moved the price to $5.99. And I think we sold at $5.99 all through 2018, and it just continued to sell really well at $5.99. And then when we released the second book, when we released The New Magic, we did one more 99-cent promotion with The New Magic, and I forget who we did it through, but I don't remember who we did it. Anyway, and after that, we decided to go for broke, and we raised the prices of both books to $9.99. We understood that if it didn't work, we could move it back to $5.99 and just call it, and just call it a marketing exploration. But the damnedest thing happened, which is that after that spike from the 99-cent promotion came down, the sales actually went up at $9.99 over $5.99. Not by much. Couple more books a day. And overall, the trend line has been higher at $9.99 than it was at $5.99. And it's taken us a lot. We've had to do a lot of market research to figure out how this is actually happening. But there are a lot of things going for these books the way that we did them that may not work for other indie authors, but it might work for some if they're following a particular business model. And I think we talked about this last time too on Fan of Fantasy, that I'm not really doing this the way that everybody else is. You know, my release cycle is about 2 years. You know, I put top dollar into cover and editing and, typesetting and proofreading and everything. And I try to put out books that are comparable and competitive with the books that the big five publishers are putting out. In fact, I just did a book signing at a Barnes & Noble at a fantasy convention a couple of months ago, and the Barnes & Noble staff were looking at my hardcovers and asking who my company, Oxblood Books, they were asking who Oxblood Books was an imprint of. They thought that we were an imprint of a big five publisher because they were turning the book over and they couldn't believe that it wasn't something that was made, because they've got indie authors in there, doing signings from time to time, I guess. And they were like, I can't believe this is an independent book. I'm like, well, it's exactly the same. The only thing we don't have is we don't have like the metal stamped cover, or the embossed cover or what have you. But it's, so we're putting out a really high quality product, and we put a lot of money into the production value of it. That's kind of the start point with all of this. I think that there's an expectation of a certain level of value in craft at that $10 mark. And something that's really interesting about that is that when we started really getting into it, because I belong to a number of readers forums and readers groups, like on Facebook and stuff. I participate in these groups as a reader, and in a lot of these groups, they don't even know that I'm an author. I've never told them. I'm in there just doing market research, fantasy fans or what have you. And there's a readership out there that will not buy books under a certain price point. And they are absolutely adamant they don't read indie fantasy. They just don't. And I'm not saying that they're right for it, but it's just really interesting. We see this divide between indie authors and big five authors. At least there used to be. It's getting fuzzier now. But there's definitely a divide out there between readers of independent fantasy and readers of big five fantasy. And the people who buy, fantasy by household name authors generally are not going to read a 99-cent fantasy or a $2.99 fantasy or what have you. They don't. And I think to them, the money is not as big of a deal as the time that it takes out of their day. They care about $10. They care about how those 4, 5, 6 hours, are going to be spent. Are they going to enjoy that time? Because I think that there's a subset of people out there. In fact, I know there is, because frankly, I'm one of them. My time is worth more than $10 an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, of course, we have to sort of let's say pay respect to the people of the world who don't have much money to go by. But
absolutely.
But that said, what I meant with it was that I just sort of want to preempt you what I'm about to say, so nobody comes at me for it. But my point is just that whether we're selling a book for $1, $2, $5, $10, in my mind at least, it is still damn cheap for a book. It's like $10. It's 2 cups of coffee or something. It's nothing. But I had to sort of preempt it that I do understand that some people of the world don't have $10 to spend on the book. So all respect for that. But just in general, at least, I don't think that price in itself should make much of a difference as to whether people want to buy a book or not. But where I think it might make a difference is if you are first starting out and you are struggling with actually getting your name out there.
Yes.
A price point of $9.99, I think, will work counterproductive for you, because it's going to be very, very hard to sell it. But if you already have a certain readership, following you, then I can see it working, because then you can push the book to your current readers as well, and it'll bump up the rankings on Amazon, etc. And then Amazon will start promoting it for you via the algorithm and so forth, and then it might sort of work.
Yes, and my first book sold spectacularly, and we were very fortunate. It's got, I think, 120, I haven't looked in a while, 120 or something reviews on Amazon at this point. We've sold, I don't even know, well over 10,000 copies. It's also got, it's received mainstream critical acclaim from, Publishers Weekly, and some big fantasy sites as well. And so it's got that kind of cred behind it, so we can push it at $9.99. And there's there's that sort of expectation behind it.
Did you have any sort of feedback from your current readers when you raised the price to $9.99? Was there any feedback, anybody complaining about it or anything?
No, I got one message on my website from somebody who had misunderstood something that I was saying about marketing earlier when I said I wasn't going to drop my prices again, because he then saw it at a 99-cent sale. And I'm definitely going to keep doing that. I mean, if I get a book bug, for God's sake, I'm going to drop my price to $9.99, or drop my price to 99 cents. I mean, this is kind of what you do.
Of course.
But so another thing that has happened that's been really interesting about this is that we've seen our paperback orders go up since we pushed the price to $9.99. We're now selling more paperbacks, and we're also selling hardcovers as well, and we're seeing orders from bookstores, from independent bookstores. And I think that part of what's going on is that, I mean, I know that when I go into a bookstore, if there's a book that I haven't seen before, I'll look it up real fast. I'll just punch in my phone and look it up and see, look at reviews and see what the author's about and what have you. And I think that when people do that, and they see that when they see the book and then they see the reviews and then they see that it's $9.99 for an ebook, I mean, it's $7 more for the paperback. And it's not that big of a deal. If you're going to spend $10 for a book, you're probably going to spend, 17. I mean, when people buy a book, they're not just buying something to spend. When people buy an actual hardcover book, you're buying a work of art that you can also interact with. That's what it comes down to. It's an interactive piece of art. It's not just a book. It's not just a story. And so when you give them that really nice cover, and you give them that the beautiful typesetting and heavier paper and everything for this, I think they see the thing in front of them. People like books. I love having a book in front of me, and so I don't know. Again, that's just kind of where I'm at with it. And you talk about people who don't have a lot of money for books, and I was griping earlier about having gotten pirated. And for God's sake, if you can't afford one of my books, seriously, if you can't afford one of my books, DM me. Just message me. I'll send you a book funnel link, and I'll send you a copy of the book. I have no problem doing that. Just, seriously, just don't pirate it. Just let me know. Say, hey, man, I'm a student. Hey, I can't afford $9.99 for a book, And yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. I have no problem with that. Yeah, that's basically it. And there's no reason to steal anything, for God's sake, and there's no reason to get pissed off that my books are expensive. I'm not trying to be exclusive. I'm not trying to cater to a specific crowd. I just happen to think that, the amount of work that I put into the books, again, if it takes you, like you were just saying earlier, if it takes you 4 or 5 hours to read a book, I can read a paperback in 2-3 hours. But again, for $10, it comes out to $5 an hour, $3 an hour. That's fabulous entertainment right there, man. I mean, that's a lot of time that you get for spending that money. And I don't mind buying books because, again, for me, that's money well spent. That's a good use of my time. And I think the same thing. It takes me 2 years to write a book, and there's a lot of time and a lot of effort involved in that. And I kind of want to recoup that, I mean, yeah. So when you raised your pricing to $9.99 compared to what you had before, how long ago is that? How much data do you have sort of to deem that it's actually been successful to raise the price? I've got I think it was about 3 months ago.
Okay. So the last 3 months have been selling better than at the previous price point?
It's fallen back to about almost exactly where it was at the previous price point.
Right, but revenue-wise, it gives more than
revenue-wise. It's fantastic. Revenue-wise, it's much better. Yeah, at $9.99, I mean, you're making $7 a book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're selling, you sell 5 books a day at that, with 2 books out, you sell 5 books just on Amazon. I don't even know what my numbers look like on the other ones yet because they're some of them are net 60. So I haven't got a trend line for the other retailers yet.
No. But it also gives you sort of, because you have that higher price point, it gives you a bigger margin that you can play with when it comes to running ads and stuff, because you can actually spend a bit more and still make it profitable, where those who sell it for $2.99, that's a very tough marketing budget that you have to spend there.
AMS ads were one of the reasons that we considered going to $9.99, or the Amazon ads, what they call them now. But yeah, they were killing us, and we're now able to compete at a completely different level. I'm able to get conversions now, which is really weird. I'm able to get conversions now on some of the top tier keywords out there at $9.99. People won't buy the exact same ad. All I did was raise the price, and the click-through rate and the conversion rate on premium keywords is much better at $9.99. And again, we're seeing this primarily for the first book in the series, though not for the second. And I think that's because it's got over 100 reviews, and it's got it's got the blurbs from mainstream critics and what have you. So again, we're able to play at that level. And I think that's the thing right there, that if you want to be doing this, that's the thing you need to be gunning for first. You need to be able to get that book out there. That's going to, you should concentrate not on selling the book at $10, but on producing a book and getting it to the point where it can sustain itself at that. I think that's more the key than anything else. And it took almost 3 years to get the book to the point where it can stay afloat at this price point.
Yeah, that's what I would think as well. That if you can build the book up so that it has enough reviews on it, it's selling well, it sits well in the ranking, and then you raise the price, then I can see that it could work. Or as I said early on, if you already have a very established name and you have a big readership already, then you can probably launch it at that price as well. But yeah, unless you have those things in place, I think my advice to those of you watching and listening would be don't start out by pricing your books at $9.99 thinking then you're going to earn a lot of margin, which of course you will, but you will sell no books, so you're going to be stuck at zero.
Right. And again, coming back to trying to say this without getting in trouble with anybody, but coming back to what I see in these readers forums and looking at what is expected from readers who buy books at $10 a pop or more. Now you've got to really have your ducks in a row. And again, if you're somebody they've never heard of, you've really got to have some kind of, some kind of like social proof behind it, right? You've got to have. Yeah. So I don't know. This is what we've been doing lately, and it seems to be working, fairly well. And my rankings aren't great. I mean, I'm hovering probably around anywhere between 50 and 100,000 on the Amazon rankings, and sometimes a day will go by and I'll only sell a couple of books, and it'll fall down into the 150, 200,000 range, and then the next day we'll sell 5, 6, 10 books, and they'll pop, and they'll pop right back up again.
Yeah, indeed.
But at $9.99, like I was saying, I mean, even 5 books a day is almost $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And it adds up really fast. Your margins get a lot better at that point. So I don't know. I guess it's a way to do it. And I have a lot of people asking me all the time for advice on marketing and advice on writing and advice on what have you. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We kind of, my wife and I spitball ideas, throw them around, and well, maybe this will work, maybe that'll work. Let's try this. Let's try that. Oh my God, that worked. Oh, who knew? So, and this might, this might run its course. This could be, I keep expecting to wake up tomorrow and sell no books, and then sell no books for 2 weeks and have the thing just have exhausted its market. I don't think that that's what happens, but I'm totally prepared for that. I'm prepared for anything that happens, good or bad, in this environment, because it's just so dynamic. I'm prepared for anything that happens in this environment to be transitory or somehow provisional. And pretty much anything that happens can be a fluke. The fact that it's selling at all at $9.99 could be a fluke. It could be just some freak occurrence of market placement and demographic interest at the moment.
Yeah, well, probably not, but I think that the funny thing about marketing books, and I mean, of course, you can watch channels like this one or listen to our podcast and stuff like that. We try to share everything that we learn, at least, so that other people can replicate it. But I think apart from that, what is important to sort of understand is that when you're marketing things, you have to do what you're talking about here. You have to test different theories out and just see what works. Yes. Because as long as of course you can do what like everybody else does. You can run the Amazon ads and I think at this point in time, at least, if you want to be competitive at Amazon ads, the bids are quite expensive and you have to pay quite a lot, which makes it sort of half pointless for any new authors, at least, because you don't have the budget to compete.
How about that? I'm gonna argue with you on that one, my friend.
All right.
Because in marketing, there's the concept of a loss leader, right? Where you're going to have to spend money at the outset in order to establish your brand, in order to establish yourself. You're going to lose money.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Money. And, it comes down to it too. Here in the States, maybe we talked about this last time, but I've gotten some flack for how much money we spend producing the books. And our launch costs are probably $4,000 or $5,000 a book by the time everything is factored in, including all of the ads and everything. It might be higher than that. And while that seems prohibitively high, here in America anyway, the average startup cost for a small business in this country is $25,000 right now.
Yeah, indeed.
So, launching a book for $5,000, even the cost of, incorporating, starting a business, all these things, hiring an accountant, hiring your in my case, business development consultant, hiring a graphic artist, all these things, web designer, all that stuff that it takes to actually get your company launched and to launch these things, professionally. The cost of classes, writing classes or mentorship, or going to writing conventions and getting some kind of study in writing, whether it's formal education or whether you're self-educated, and even the investment in yourself, the time that it takes to learn, to actually learn the craft of writing, those years that it takes. You can still put that into monetary terms if you break it down. I don't like to, because it depresses me. Think about how long time I put into this, but even so, it's a pretty good deal. Launching a book for that amount of money. And the other thing is that, even with that $25,000 average startup cost here in the States, your business is expected to lose money. It's usually, it's typical for 2 to 3 years to go by before you see a profit. You operate by taking out loans. I do not recommend that anybody do this when you're launching a book, for God's sake. Don't do that. No. Generally, when you launch a small business, you take out loans, and you use the loans to pay yourself and to pay for your business and keep it afloat until you get the revenue coming in a year or 2 or 3 years later. Also, most small businesses fail, but there's this expectation, getting back to AMS ads, Amazon ads, there's this expectation that you're immediately going to start making money as soon as you put your book out there. And that's just not how it happens. And I think that when you are building your business model, you need to look at it realistically and realize that, hey, it's going to cost me money to get my book out there, the advertising, the promotion, what have you. I'm going to lose money on this. And there's also another thing that Amazon ads do if you spend enough on them. And I've done this in the past, and I don't do it anymore. But with AMS ads, you can spend a lot of money on AMS ads and get your book way up in the rankings so that people will see it and buy it organically. And then your ACoS, your average cost of sale, right? Your ACoS is going to go through the ceiling, but you're going to be picking up more sales that are going to offset that in the long run. Because once you get into that top 100 or that top 50 or that top 20 in your genre and your subcategory, then you're going to improve your visibility, and people are going to be just going through. They're not going to be clicking on your ads. They're going to just find it on their own. And so there's a model in there as well, but it takes you have to be willing to lose money and to gamble on doing that. And we played around with that at cheaper price points, and it worked really well. But again, yeah, when you're talking about $10 a book, then the sale, when you don't get a sale, it can actually, when you don't get a sale, when your sales start to go down, then it starts to actually make a dent. Yeah. And the last thing to realize too is that I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this professionally right now. This is not my career. I'm not making enough on this right now to, retire on or what have you. And I think that if I was, I might be going about this a little bit differently. Right now, I've got a job right now that I really enjoy, and I'm able to do this and, kind of as a dedicated hobbyist and kind of play games with it and see what works and what doesn't. So I'm extremely fortunate to be able to do that. So again, if you're trying to do this and be a full-time author, I would not recommend trying anything that I'm doing right now. If the sole means of income, I just would not recommend doing this. So
no, I think because I'm fully on board with the fact that your first book can function as a loss leader and that sort of thing, but the way I view it is that if you sort of scroll back time maybe a year or two, you could place bids on Amazon ads that would actually get you sales directly that were perfectly reasonable bids. Maybe you could bid like 20-30 cents per click and you would get the sale. Nowadays, if you want that sale, you need to bid maybe close to $1, which is just, in all honesty, unless you have a high price point like $9.99 for a book, if you're selling it for $2.99 or 99 cents, of course you can take a loss leader, but most people who's just starting out, they cannot sustain spending $3,000 a month on Amazon ads and get $100 in return in sales. No, that's just not working.
It's absolutely not. Absolutely not. You absolutely can't. And you're right. And there are premium keywords out there right now. I think Game of Thrones is going for over $2 right now. Yeah. And with the new bid structure as well, where it can plus up your bid by up to 100%. You could be bidding $3 on that, which is just that's insane. That is insane. Even at $9.99, if you're bidding $3, you're going to need damn near a 50% conversion rate on your click-throughs to make that. I don't know anybody.
That's not going to happen. No.
I just don't. Indeed. Maybe somebody out there is doing it. For God's sake, if you are, man, contact me. I will hire you to write my to write my copy. So
I think everybody would.
Hit me up.
Exactly. All right, but I think for me, the main, because Autumn and I have also been debating sort of the price point for our future books, and we're also gonna sort of crank up the prices a bit compared to what our previous book sells for. But I think for me, the key takeaway for those watching and listening is really that that this might be a strategy worth considering once you have a bit of credence to your name and you're selling a certain amount of books already. Then don't just fall into the trap of thinking, well, I've always sold at $4.99, so I should probably just continue doing that because apparently I'm selling. Try testing out and do what Joseph had done here. Try to crank up the price and see what happens. You can always lower it again, but if it keeps selling at a high price, well, you'd be stupid not to do it, right? So for me, I think that's the takeaway here. All right, cool. Is there anything else we need to cover, Joseph?
Yeah, actually, I just remember that one of the catalysts for pushing the price up was that Goodreads gave it a really high ranking on its Hugo recommendations list.
Oh, cool.
And when that was happening, our sales were doing really well. And again, it gave it that kind of credibility. Again, when you went and clicked on it, when you did a Google search for it, it popped up. And I think it ended up at like number 25 on Goodreads Hugo recommendations list.
Right.
which was just phenomenal. So again, that verification, that validation, I was in there too.
Yeah, so basically, if something like that happens, then that could also be a trigger whereby you should think, maybe I'm just going to raise the price for a while here just to see, because, if you're getting credence like that's going to help, right? So
yeah. And I'm sorry, I just remember that was one of the things that we were like, let's see what happens. So
yeah, exactly. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Jesper, it was fantastic, man. Thank you. It was great talking to you.
It was great talking to you, Joseph. So I wish you best of luck continuously with selling books at $9.99, and hopefully you're going to get a lot of revenue from that. I hope. Thanks a lot, Joseph. Cheers.
Thanks. Take care.